Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and yes, you read the title, and you know exactly what it is that I'm reviewing, and as was teased in the last review video. That's right, because this is definitely, I'm pretty sure, one of the top masterpieces of Robert Rodriguez, as well as two other directors that were a part of this noir film. Yeah, and the fact that this is a movie adaptation of one of the Dark Horse comics, and I gotta say, this was a pretty interesting film. So, yeah, that's right. Not to mention that this film, directed by Rodriguez and two others, Rodriguez was not the only one that directed this. Yeah, there were two others until I mentioned them in a moment. But yeah, this film's celebrating its anniversary, and yes, that's right. I am finally reviewing from 2005, Sin City. Yes, Sin City. Yeah, I gotta say, because, this film, I kind of had my hair just out right. Anyway, so, yeah, that didn't last long. But as I was saying about Sin City, I won't deny, because this was a very interesting film. I did quite enjoy it. I was very invested in this movie as I was watching it. And, with what Sin City has to offer, and keep in mind, because this is a movie adaptation, as I just said, of the Dark Horse comics from good old Frank Miller. Yes, because, and I'm talking a little bit of background as with the first things I have to say about the movie. So Sin City, having started as a comic book series, and, Frank Miller, of course, being responsible for this. And we would also know Frank Miller best for, say, Batman. He's done Batman a good chunk of times, and also his art style and such. And, no doubt that from this and Batman, it's two of the most iconic things that we know Frank Miller so well. Yeah, I almost said Weller. And the fact that Rodriguez being so invested in these comic books, and, at some point, and after the success of the Spy Kids films, he had just done the third Spy Kids films, and had also done Once Upon a Time in Mexico. He wanted to do something to challenge himself, and he proposed / pitched to Frank Miller on doing a movie adaptation of Sin City. And I'm sure maybe you guys know the entire background on this, and I would definitely recommend, checking out my friends over at So You Want to Beat Imagineer, their podcast on this, and they go into some of the background, but overall, because, with what they were developing and bringing this film to life, and they did a test short, and such, and a bunch of other stuff, until eventually they made their way to making this film come to life, and even bringing on board Quentin Tarantino as a guest director, and that is how he's credited, as a guest director, because Frank Miller and Rodriguez, they're the two main directors of this bad boy. And, not to mention that Rodriguez had to fight a tooth and nail to get Frank Miller to be credited as, one of the directors, because there was a bit of trouble at first, and because this was Frank Miller's directorial debut, but in the end, it's great to see that they managed to, have both their names be credited as well as Tarantino. So so now that I had finally watched the movie, and I had seen just a little of it, I probably had seen just one or two clips of this movie, not that much, so I didn't really know what I was really going to expect. I mean, I had no doubt that I was going to enjoy it, because of course I was well aware that this movie was really good. So and like I said at the start of this review, where, this is definitely one of Rodriguez's top masterpieces that he's done, alongside with Frank Miller. So again, I found myself enjoying it, invested in it some, and, I think I followed this movie quite well with its 4 segments / stories that happen in Sin City, and, the way that this movie is brought to life on the big screen, you know, because again, this coming from the Dark Horse comics, the noir technology that's done in this, you know, in black and white, some stuff in the film being in color, and yeah, because it's really clever and detailed, like certain things that we do see in color, like, you know, most notably red, or we would see like, you know, blue or yellow or green, just any specific color that we would see in this movie. Yeah. Or even like, say, seeing a bit of color like on some of the actors, you know, their flesh and color, just a little bit, yeah. And because, you know, certain moments that happen in this movie where the color emerges. Yeah. Just knowing about each of these characters, and yeah, because a little bit of the segments are a bit random, because like the first two segments that happen, well, we get like the part one of these first two segments. Then after the next two segments, we get the entire story of the next two segments. Then we come back to where we last left off in the first two. Yeah, part two of the first two segments. You get my point. And you've seen this movie, so you know. But, yeah. With Rodriguez, Miller, Tarantino, their directions for this movie, great cast of talents, you know, from most notably, say, Bruce Willis, Jessica Alba, and, Devon Aoki, if I'm getting the last name right, Powers Booth, and Mickey Rourke, Benicio del Toro, the late Michael Clark Duncan, the action, the suspense, the violence in this, and how it's done with noir, and seeing the blood and everything like that, the gruesome stuff. Very interesting, and I don't know, I mean, because, you know, I feel like that the violence and gruesome stuff in Sin City, well, because of how the noir looks on that stuff, not too bad, but we still get the idea that, yeah, because with the gruesome things that happens to these characters, yeah, just, it's amazing. Gruesome, but yeah, pretty cool at the same time. Anyways, so yeah. You know, just overall, from beginning to end, Sin City, what this is like, my experience watching it, I really enjoyed it. It's amazing. Definitely a pretty good Dark Horse movie. Well, right next to, say, Hellboy, The Mask. Yeah, those are definitely the biggies being adapted into movies, you know, from Dark Horse. So, yeah. All right, so with the first things I've had to say about Sin City out of the way, now, as always, read the description / the story. In this corded of noir, neo-noir tales, yeah, a mysterious salesman narrates a tragic story of codependency, if I'm saying that right, while a muscle-bound vigilante tears his way through the criminal underworld in search of his lost love. In another part of the city, a grizzled cop foils the ambitions of a child killer, and an ex-prostitute evades, if I'm saying that right, her ex-pimp with the help of her new boyfriend, Dwight. Okay, so, getting into the film itself, well, the first segment we start with is, part one of The Customer is Always Right, and it's very short. Actually, The Customer is Always Right, parts 1 and 2 are very short, yeah, because part 1 starting off the film, and then part 2 starting off the end of the movie, but until I get to part 2, because, yeah, part 1 opening on this rooftop of a building, and these two characters, a customer, well, being credited as the customer, being played by Marley Shelton, and this man, as he's credited, just the man, being played by Josh Hartnett. Yeah, I'm getting the last name right. We know who he is. He's a great actor. Yeah, they have a talk, and the man offers the customer, you know, to smoke, and yeah, because she's one of the first characters. The customer is one of the first characters where she has color on her. Her dress being red and her eyes being green. And the man can see in the woman's eyes that she's tired of running and so on. And he tells her that he can help her and for her not to no longer run and such, and that she can be in safe hands with him. And telling her that he loves her. Okay? And seems like, yeah, she goes along with it, and they do share a kiss, but until he shoots her, literally. And then, with her dying and in his arms, and then mentioning that, he will do her check and such, write her check by tomorrow, how he puts at it. And yeah, that's an interesting way to start off this movie. And yeah, because we would see this guy up to the very end doing the exact same thing, because apparently this guy is like, this is what he does to all of his victims. So yeah, to the women, of course. But anyways, so after that, what a heck of a way to start off the film. Then we come to part one of the next/second segment/story of Sin City, which being That Yellow Bastard. So basically, one of the other main characters of this film being Bruce Willis himself. Yes, because he plays Detective Hartigan. Yeah, and he is soon to retire after so many years, especially since he has a heart condition. And I'll remember to put that in a text, what the heart condition is. And yeah, because there's a case that he is not going to give up on, and even when he meets with his partner, Bob, being played by Michael Madsen. Yeah. And by the way, because to go ahead and point this out, I hate, because IMDb does this sometimes, and I've mentioned this before, where they would sometimes list, like, the cast members of a movie so random, just, yeah. Not even, like, adding in, like, the segment, because they it should have that, but anyways. I mean, I've seen that on the Twilight Zone movie IMDb page, just, but anyways. So, yeah, Hartigan meeting up with his partner, Bob, and, Bob kind of gives Hartigan a hard time, and thinking that, Hartigan, is not going to do this right, and so on. And by mentioning his heart condition and, referring to Hartigan as not being a spring chicken or something, just, yeah. And also, whom has captured, like, the case that Hartigan is not letting go of. The capturing of this 11-year-old girl, basically. Yeah, a girl by the name of Nancy, age 11, yeah, age 11 as she's credited. Nancy being played by young Mackenzie Vega, and I would know her best as being one of the forms of Mystique in X-Men Last Stand, and where that cop says, "I'll spray you in the face, bitch." Yeah, that's her. Because Nancy's been captured by the son of a senator. Yeah. Senator Rourke. That's the guy. And basically, the son of the senator is Rourke Jr. And Rourke Jr. Being played by Nick Stahl. Yeah, I think I'm getting that right. And at one point, because Hartigan punching his partner, just unconsciously, and going to proceed with this case to find the girl that's held hostage and to take down the monster, which being Rourke Jr. But at one point, he has, the heart condition gets to him, and he's, trying to fight to make his way and not to give up on the little girl. And by the way, there is a lot of narration in this, because with each of these segments, the main characters of these stories, they're narrating and with what they're basically doing throughout those stories. So, yeah. And even, some of the characters, commenting on themselves and, Hartigan commenting on himself, like, don't give up, old man, and stuff like that. Hartigan, he manages to pull through, taking down some of the goons, alongside with Rourke Jr. And when, we see Rourke Jr. and Nancy, and, because Rourke interrogating Nancy, and, because with whatever Rourke is about to do to Nancy, and with what is described by Rourke Jr. and to what he's done to the past victims, golly, this dude is a literal monster, eventually, Hartigan, comes face to face with Rourke Jr., and a few times where Hartigan would get shot, but he manages to survive some of the gunshots that he takes. Because then at one point, Rourke Jr. holding Nancy hostage, they make their way to a dock, Hartigan catching up to them, and by taking down and shooting Rourke Jr., shooting him in the ear, and then to his crotch, and so on. And eventually he manages to defeat Rourke Jr., and supposedly that's it for Rourke Jr., or is it? And unfortunately for Hartigan, he's been very wounded, and because Rourke Jr. did shoot him a couple more times, and, and especially when Bob came in. Bob shot down Hartigan. Golly. It's unfortunate for Hartigan, because what's going to happen to him next? And when we would see him very later on in the movie, in part 2, because Hartigan being framed and stuff like that, and even, with whom is behind this and what they've done with Hartigan, and Hartigan has to keep Nancy safe and such, and presumably at first it seems like, Hartigan has died, and Nancy, snuggling up with Hartigan, and once the reinforcements show up, again, what a way to start off this movie with part 1, with getting Hartigan and with what's going on with his character, again, this just being part 1 of the second segment / story of this, again, which being That Yellow Bastard. The title doesn't make any sense yet, but until part 2, then we see, and hence the title, That Yellow Bastard. So the first parts of the first 2 segments, parts 1 of The Customer is Always Right and That Yellow Bastard, again, an interesting way and, awesome way to start off this movie. And after those first 2 segments, part 1 of The Customer is Always Right and That Yellow Bastard, then we continue on with, story number 3, and that being, the third segment of Sin City, and that being The Hard Goodbye. And this was a pretty good story / segment in this. So basically, the main character of this story, named Marv, being played by Mickey Rourke, he had met this gal from this saloon, which being named Goldie, played by Jamie King, and because that they had met for the first time, it doesn't take them too long to, fall in love with each other, and Goldie wanting Marv and so on, and wanting to be in safe hands with him and so on, and they did a bit of, banging and such on this heart-shaped bed, and because lucky Marv, finding the right girl supposedly for him. But then this creepy Cyclops guy, because with shades, makes his way to the apartment, and and this creepy guy with shades, being Elijah Wood, coming in and apparently killed Goldie, leaving no marks on her body, and Marv was asleep while this was happening, and obviously, this creepy guy had killed Goldie while she was sleeping as well, and when Marv woke up the next morning, finding out that, because Goldie had died, and even commenting, because as he's narrating, again, keep in mind, the main characters of these segments / stories are narrating, so Marv, explaining that, he would know if Goldie was breathing because, the movement of her boobs. Yeah, well, I mean, that's true, but still. And apparently, yeah, because it doesn't take too long for cops to show up, and where, yeah, Marv realizing that he's being framed for this, and whomever it is that has framed Marv, well, because we don't know quite yet, and Marv making an escape and taking down the cops, even like when he hijacks a police cop, and yeah, disposing the two cops, one of them letting out Wilhelm, and disposing the police car, going in the water, and making his way through a sewer drain, and well, he makes his way to a friend's house, which actually being his parole officer, Lucille. Yeah, and Lucille being played by Carla Gugino, if I'm getting her last name right, but you know who it is, of course. And by the way, Lucille's also the parole officer of Hardigan, so yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way. By showing up at her place, and yeah, by this point, Marv has some bandages around his face, and man, because, to go ahead and mention this, because Marv takes a lot of crap throughout this story, where he gets a lot of cuts, and, he's bleeding, and so many bandages, like, small bandages on his face, like, man. But it seems like he takes it pretty well, but just, yeah, I just thought I'd comment on that. But, yeah, so Marv at Lucille's place and sharing with Lucille about what had just happened and with the death of Goldie and planning to, avenge Goldie, and, it'll be, like heaven for him to take down Goldie's killer and such. And Lucille thinks that probably Marv is imagining this, and with what Marv's doing, her telling him that this could get him in trouble, and the fact that he had gotten out of prison, yeah, according to Lucille and how she puts at it. And even, like, with him, maybe he is imagining this or something, Lucille offers giving Marv some pills from her girlfriend, a Shrank. Yeah, literally, a Shrank, as it's described, and I assume, even though the movie doesn't establish it, I'm guessing Lucille's a lesbian, but okay. Not that I'm complaining, I'm just saying. But, yeah, so giving him these pills and that, will help him out so he doesn't keep, if he is, hallucinating and imagining this stuff, and with Goldie. And then there was one moment, and by the way, because if any of you have seen the director's cut, yeah, and I'll mention a few bits of the director's cut, because, yeah, there was a moment where, yeah, Marv did meet with his mother and sharing her about what's going on with him right now, and obviously with the mentioning of Goldie and such, but yeah. And I will say, because when I watched Sin City, yeah, I watched the theatrical cut, so yeah, just to get that out of the way. And at his mom's house, he had to get some equipment, weapons and so on. And yeah, and also because his mom informing her son that they came looking for him. So yeah, the police, obviously. So then after that, well, Marv finding his way at the saloon, and like even at one point, like taking down a few guys in the saloon and telling one of them to spread the word that he's lost his crap because of, a girl that he was with. And there's one guy in the corner of the saloon that is actually watches Marv a little, and this guy who we will be seeing in the next story/segment, but yeah. And then these two hitmen showing up and interrogating Marv, taking him outside, but yeah, Marv being quick enough to take down the two hitmen, taking the first one down by smashing his face in a brick wall and sparing one hitman's life a little bit and trying to get some answers and questions, because of, him being framed and Goldie's death, and the hitman mentioning the name Telly Stern, and that's the first thing that Marv gets, and he kills the hitman, even stealing his coat. Then, after that, well, Marv at one point gets a whip of Goldie's perfume, yeah, and apparently, supposedly, Goldie is alive, because yeah, she's right there. We see a spitting image of Goldie right there, and, you know, she's kind of going after Marv, you know, for revenge and such, and, yeah. And Marv taking quite a beating, and that's another thing, because some of the characters in this movie taking a lot of hits, like being thrown, or, like, some of them are getting hit by a car, like, most notably Marv, like, jeez. But for Marv especially, he handles it pretty well like a boss, because, you know, nothing able to take him down until, well, the very end, with what does happen to Marv. But yeah, until I get to that, of course. And then what happens next to Marv, because getting more information and answers / questions, like interrogating this one guy sticking his head in a toilet, and mentioning the name of Connolly, and then after that, because Marv at one point going to a church and making a confession to this priest about what he's done, and still, because more information that Marv is getting, and apparently, like at one point, the priest mentions to Marv about someone who is, you know, the head of this conspiracy, and that being, well, Senator Rourke. And Marv finds that hard to believe, and the further conversations that the priest and Marv had, well, I should have seen this coming, where it would lead to Marv literally shooting the priest. And it's, you know, and like Marv not caring if, like, he's gonna go to hell or something. Just, jeez Louise, man. That was something, because literally just shooting a priest in a church. Good God, Marv, but yeah, still, with what Marv is like in this movie and with what's going on with him, yeah, I mean, it's understandable, but just, yeah, crazy at the same time. Okay, so after that, well, and as I did bring up a little early, because a moment where supposedly, if it is Goldie, running over Marv, like hitting him with her car, and still, yeah, able to survive that. And when he drives off, well, he starts to take some pills, because if he is hallucinating and, you know, he's imagining things, then at one point, yeah, he finds his way to Rourke's farm. Yes, and Rourke's farm being a bit of a staple in this movie, and how, yeah, it would have a big part in, well, part 2 of That Yellow Bastard. But yeah, until I get there. So, yeah, again, Marv finding his way to Rourke's farm, and where at one point he does come face to face with Goldie's killer. Yeah, the quiet one, the Cyclops guy with the shades, and yeah, Elijah Wood, as I said, because, like a little later, Marv does learn of the killer's name, but when coming face to face with this quiet killer, and by the way, Elijah Wood has no lines in this movie. Yeah, but he still pulled off one heck of a good performance, like, with what this character's like, you know, he's crazy, he's psychotic. So, Marv trying to take down Goldie's killer, but, yeah, he's no match for him, and he's very quiet. And Marv not able to, like, find where he is, and how, yeah, the guy takes down Marv instantly, and he's got these creepy fingernails, and by scratching Marv, jeez. Not to mention there is a dog there on Rourke's farm, and Marv did at one point take down the dog. Like, didn't flat out kill the dog, but just knocked out the dog. Jeez Louise. And yeah, ultimately Marv loses to this guy, and Marv then wakes up and finds himself in a prison, you know, in a prison room, and where he sees a wall of mounted heads of the killer's victims, which, yeah, being women, and just so happens that Lucille is in the room with Marv, and she's, I think, yeah, pretty much butt naked, and Marv offering, you know, the coat that he's wearing to her, and we find out from Lucille, and with what she says to Marv, that, you know, the killer is a cannibal, eating his victims and only saving their heads. Golly. And the killer did spare Lucille, but only ate one of her arms, and forced her to watch him eat her hand. Ugh, that's crazy. And yeah, because, again, this killer is psychotic with whom they're dealing with. And a little later, Marv is trying to find a way for him and Lucille to break out of the prison room by taking down the window of bars. And when at one point as I did mention, Marv does learn of the name of the killer, which being Kevin. So now Marv knows whom the killer's name is, and he'll plan to go after Marv will plan to go after Kevin once again, for sure. And eventually Marv does manage to break down and tear off the window bars, and thus, Marv and Lucille making their escape, and just in the nick of time, the police arrive, and, because they go into the woods a little, they'll plan to, confess to the police and such, and, with what Marv's going to specifically do, but only for Lucille to knock Marv out unconsciously, and, saving both of their butts with what she's going to do approaching the police. And, unfortunately for Lucille, the police don't take it very well, and they just flat out kill Lucille, literally. Marv does regain consciousness, and he takes down the police, all of them, brutally, of course, and killing the main leader of these policemen, a black guy, and he's got, black makeup or something on his eyes. You realize that? And, by killing him and stealing his black jacket, and from there on, after that, Marv, obviously gonna plan on getting back and taking down Kevin once and for all. Okay, but what does happen next is, Marv discovering that whom actually is involved and responsible and linked with Kevin, and with Kevin going after Goldie and such, is the brother of Senator Rourke. Yeah, Senator Rourke's brother, being Patrick Henry Rourke, being played by Rutger Hauer, if I'm getting the last name right. Again, you know me sometimes. He at one point was supposed to be the president, but then he chose to be a man to worship God and such, and, by becoming a priest and such. And also not to mention that Patrick was responsible for getting his brother to become senator, and Marv takes a moment and making sure that if he is actually going after the right man, and because, with the hallucinations and him imagining stuff, and with his condition, but even before he does so and whatever he's going to do next, he does at one point go to this one location / section in Sin City, which, by the way, the name of the city that our main characters reside in is Bazin City. Yeah. The section in the city being Old Town, and Old Town being run by the local prostitute community. So he goes to them, getting some more information on Goldie, only for him to at one point be captured and taken in by, again, maybe it's Goldie, supposedly, and Marv finding himself tied up and confronted by Goldie and the other prostitutes, and and the other prostitutes, one of them most notably being Guile, if I'm getting that name right, and Guile being played by Ahsoka Tano herself, Rosario Dawson, and a couple of others that we see, and most notably, not just Rosario Dawson, but we also have Becky being played by Alexis Bledel, if I'm getting her last name right, whom we would know her best from the Gilmore Girls. Yeah, her. But she's done more than that, of course. She was also in Jennifer's Wedding. Yeah, that one. I did get the title right, but yeah. With Goldie supposedly confronting Marv, and she thinks at first that Marv was responsible for, and that's the thing, because it turns out not to be Goldie, but her twin sister, Wendy. Yeah. Makes sense. Twin sister, they look identical, as I was saying, Wendy thinking and suspecting that maybe Marv was responsible for the death of her twin sister and those other girls at Rourke's farm, their heads being hung on the wall, yeah. But when Marv gives Wendy all the details of what's happened and it's not him, yeah. And then she gives in and by trusting him. And Marv managing to untie himself from the chair easily, and even Wendy commenting that he could have done that, but yeah, with what Marv was doing, and, because he wouldn't have done that, and then until he would explain to Wendy, yeah. So, yeah, sure enough, Wendy does team up with Marv, and now both of them going after Kevin. At one point, Marv and Wendy buy some supplies. Marv especially, with what he needs in order to finally take down Kevin. One of them being handcuffs. And eventually, when making their way back near Rourke's farm, Marv getting Kevin's attention, lighting a fuse and such, an explosion, and Kevin making his way outside, and Marv trying to take down Kevin. Kevin avoids a few of those traps that Marv laid out, but up to when Marv finally captures Kevin by handcuffing him. As I said, handcuffs. And at one point, Wendy wants to shoot down Kevin, but Marv knocks out Wendy, literally punching her, because he will handle and take care of Kevin his way. Oh boy, because, and he carries her back to the car, and he doesn't want her to see what he's going to do to Kevin, because it will give her nightmares, so that's very kind of him, and, Marv, he's the one that's going to do gruesome things to Kevin, so, he'll handle it pretty well, so, and, because what he does to Kevin, he cut off his arms and legs, and he's just sitting there by a tree. And Kevin, he has no reaction to this. He's just sitting there quietly, still no dialogue from Elijah Wood, just sitting there with a creepy smile, because he's like he gladly accepts his fate. Yeah. And then when the dog steps in, the dog does step in, and smelling the scent and such, and, the dog flat out eating the rest of Kevin. And then when Marv, he decapitated Kevin's head. Jeez Louise, And then, right after that, because Marv brought Wendy back safe and sound, an apartment and such, and then what would happen next for Marv would lead him to coming face to face with Rourke's brother himself, again, that being Patrick Henry Rourke, and presenting Patrick with a gift, the head of Kevin, literally. Alright, and to speed things up some, because, by, again, visiting Patrick Henry Rourke, presenting him the head of Kevin, and with what we learned from Henry Rourke about, his connection with Kevin, because Kevin at a young age came to Henry Rourke, and, because, they had this connection, and, apparently Kevin feeling the touch of God whenever he ate someone, and Henry joined Kevin by, eating people, being cannibals, and, it's crazy. And just, the more conversations that each Henry Rourke and Marv have, and up to when Marv finishes off Patrick Henry Rourke, literally like crushing him. I think, we did get a little glimpse of how he was killing him, and blood spewing on Marv's face. And then it would lead to the police coming in and arresting / bringing in Marv, and forcing Marv to confess and such, and, him being found guilty, and how slowly but surely he would be clapped and would be sentenced to death, And the night before he is to be clapped and such, he is paid a visit by Wendy. She spends the night with Marv in his jail cell, and she lets Marv call her Goldie, and then the next day, Marv given the chair and is about to be electrocuted. The first time they electrocute him, he doesn't die, but when they do it twice, he's finished off. And then the camera pans in Marv's eye, and I guess, presumably, he's now reunited with Goldie, I presume, because, just again, what we see, and as the camera pans into his eye, we see him and Goldie in the heart-shaped bed, yeah. And that's how, the third story/segment ends, yeah. So just, yeah, the hard goodbye, very interesting, but at the same time, it was pretty well done. A lot of intenseful things that happen in this, but that's not enough because, the entirety of Sin City, a lot of crazy things happening in these story/segments. And yeah, wait until we now get to the fourth story/segment. Yeah, which that, of course, being the big fat kill. So, with the big fat kill and what goes on in this, well, because yeah, of course I've read the description / the story on what the movie is and with the 4 segments, but yeah, with this, well, the first characters we see is Jackie Boy, being played by Benicio del Toro, trying to, make peace and have his ex-girlfriend give him another chance. That being Shelley, played by Brittany Murphy. But by this point, she already has another man in her life. And Jackie Boy's not going to take no for an answer. And seeing as how that he's brought a group of men with him, because, yeah, if she doesn't cooperate and so on, just, yeah. And Shelley's new man in her life being Dwight. And to go ahead and mention this, he's a clapper on the run who had facial surgery and such, just, yeah. And Dwight is, he does want Shelley to open the door, so, he can beat someone up and such, but, yeah, she's not gonna let that happen. Eventually, Jackie Boy and his men, break into her apartment and interrogating / confronting Shelley, and, even at one point, telling Shelley to call up her friends from Old Town, the prostitutes, to come in and such, but she's refusing to do so, and she gets punched for that, and then at one point Jackie Boy making his way to take a leak, and, well, Dwight was, being in the bathroom hiding behind the shower curtain, and has a knife to Jackie Boy's face, giving Jackie Boy a warning to stay away from Shelley. And then he, dunks Jackie Boy's head in the toilet, and, yeah, his pee is still in the toilet. Jeez Louise. Well, yeah. And after that, because, craziness happening, and Jackie Boy has his and his men to retreat, abort, and, thus they're gonna make their way to Old Town to find someone else to hurt, and Dwight is on their trail as of now, because, yeah, knowing that they're going to harm another woman, and because they failed to do so on Shelley. And by the time that, say, Dwight makes his way to Old Town, because he knows and, is technically friends with those prostitutes at the Old Town, and, of course, Gail being the leader of the prostitutes. But, Gail informs Dwight that they've got the situation under control, being well aware that Jackie Boy is on his way. And by the way, because, yeah, with Jackie Boy being the ex-boyfriend of Shelley, well, let's just say him being an abusive SOB. So, yeah, I got that right specifically. So, yeah. And like I said, because Dwight being, having having connections with Gail and the prostitute ladies in Old Town, and, they may seem like dancers, and they're prostitutes, but they're more than that. They're very tough, and, yeah, they're very tough and brave women, and managing to take down anybody, just, yeah. And with the situation that's about to happen with Jackie Boy and his boys making their way to Old Town, oh, yeah, they're prepared. So, what happens next, and when Jackie Boy and his gang show up to Old Town, well, one of the first prostitutes they encounter is Becky, and Jackie Boy trying to make a move on Becky, getting her to spend the night and to get in the car, but Becky, refusing that offer and starting to intimidate and insult him. Little does Jackie Boy and his gang know that this is a trap. because with what Becky's doing, stalling their time and such. And then, even say, Dwight, he's getting a sense of feeling that, yeah, something's off and with what they're going to do. And then Jackie Boy makes a really big mistake where he starts to insult Becky, and by pointing a gun at her, forcing her to get in the car. However, one of the prostitutes in Old Town, Mio, yeah, I think I'm getting the name right, and yeah, she too doesn't have any lines, and Mio being played by Devon Aoki, yeah, and if I might be mispronouncing her last name right, I don't know, just, yeah, again, you know me. Because Mio making her move, because when the time comes, yep, she unleashes her weapons. Actually, one of her weapons is the shape of a swastika. Now, keep in mind, and if you know your history, that did not originate from the Nazis. They didn't make up that. They just took that from something and they made it their official logo. Just, you know what I mean? But yeah, so Mio using a swastika-shaped weapon and using blades and taking down Jackie Boy and his gang instantly. Very gruesome, because Jackie Boy lost an arm, and some of his gang being, impaled, and even Jackie Boy getting like a knife in the forehead and so on. And once that's taken care of, they managed to take down Jackie Boy and his gang just like that. Well, by searching their bodies and what they discover, most notably from Jackie Boy, turns out that Jackie Boy is a cop. And not just any ordinary cop, a hero cop. And this is not a good sign for the prostitutes in Old Town, because the history between the prostitutes and the police, they were at a truce, and the police not intervening with the prostitutes and them owning a section of this city, just letting them do their thing and such. So they were on good terms and holding the truce, the peace and such between each of them. But with what has just happened, the fact that little did they know, they had no idea that they had just killed a highly, respectful cop, being a hero cop, Jackie Boy, yep. By this point, they're screwed. So Dwight, taking it upon himself to dispose the bodies, take them away and such, and there's a bit of an argument between Gale and Dwight. And then it would lead to, confirming that apparently Dwight and Gale had a thing. They were a couple. And, the further argument that they have until, they come on terms and, Dwight will proceed on disposing the bodies, and after Dwight and Gale share a kiss, a very hard kiss, according to, Dwight's narration. Just, and when bringing in a vehicle to, carry the bodies, well, it's not big enough to carry all of the bodies. And Mio taking it upon herself to cut more parts of the bodies and, into pieces, and there's more room. So Dwight disembarking, going to dispose the bodies, and there's one moment with Dwight where he starts to hallucinate / imagine he's having a conversation with the now deceased Jackie Boy. And that sequence right there, where they're in a car and they're talking, that's the sequence that Tarantino directed. Hence him being a guest director. So he directed that. And if you know the behind the scenes, and with Tarantino's involvement in this movie and being a guest director, oh, it's really good. Well, not to mention, because, Tarantino and Rodriguez, they have a friendship. So, not to mention that, after doing this, they would find themselves doing a movie together, collabing on this movie, Planet Terror. If you know, you know. So, just thought I'd mention that. But anyway, so, that sequence where, Dwight is imagining seeing Jackie Cooper still alive, and, just seeing Jackie Cooper having a knife to his forehead, and his neck was cut, provided by Mio, and the way Dwight describes it, like a Pez dispenser or something. Oh my god. Well, that's one way of putting it, but just, and whenever Jackie Cooper lifts his neck up, just and the way he talks, just but then when it lowers down, just how it's nice attention to detail right there. But then at one point, Dwight gets pulled over by this policeman where I think the back of a tail head was, one of the light bulbs was, shorted out and such, and lets him off with the warning, just, that stuff. And then, yeah, Dwight proceeding on disposing the bodies, because at one point, the vehicle ran out of gas, and by that point, Dwight made his way to this park with dinosaur statues. Well, that's one way of putting it, because that's literally what we see next. Yeah, these dinosaur statues. So him disposing the bodies, up until these what's the word, these crooks, well, not crooks, but, mercenaries, I believe, I think I'm getting that right. Yeah, mercenaries, I got that right. But yeah, so as I was saying, and point being, because yeah, these mercenaries that come in, one of them had, been a sniper shooting down Dwight, but he did manage to survive, having Jackie Boy's police badge, protecting him, taking the bullet. And, Dwight managing to take down those mercenaries, but the mercenaries leaving Dwight with a special gift, that being a grenade. And the grenade going off, it sends the car launching in the air, as well as Dwight, and leading Dwight to fall into this pool of tar. Yeah. And luckily for Dwight, he manages to survive so far, but when he starts to drown in the pool of tar, luckily, Mio steps in, saving Dwight, and right beside Mio is this other prostitute girl named Dallas in a cowboy-like hat, being played by Patricia Vaughn. Yeah, I think I got the last name right. They basically inform Dwight that, unfortunately, Gale's been captured by, the bad guys, so, yeah. And thus, they have to, go and to confront them, and in exchange for Gale, and with Jackie Boy, just, yeah. And, even, Dwight deduces that, there's a mole in Old Town. Someone, basically, that, turned against and betrayed, the prostitutes and such. And another mentioning of the director's cut, because, yeah, one moment where Dallas, Mio, and Dwight, they get ambushed by one of the, members of the bad guys, the mob and such, and, unfortunately, Dallas met her demise, leaving Mio and Dwight to, finish off those that ambushed them, and getting Jackie Boy's head. And, when we see Gale being interrogated by the mob themselves, and the leader of the mob being Manute, yeah, I think I got the name right, being played by the late legendary good old Michael Clarke Duncan, yeah, and the fact that he's got one eye because his other eye being like a golden piece, and yeah, it being in color, just, yeah. So Manute interrogating Gale, and it turns out that, yeah, whom betrayed / turned against the prostitutes and Gale and being the mole is Becky, yeah, because Becky, came to an agreement with the mob because, to help with her mother or something. Just, yeah, the mentioning of her mother and, keeping her mom safe. And Gale being very pissed at Becky for what she's done. And even at one point, biting Becky's neck. Jeez Louise. And even Manute just, tossing Gale, just, golly, got a very strong grip. And, they are planning to execute Gale until an arrow comes through a window, striking one of the henchmen, Stuka, yeah, being played by Nikki Kate, yeah. It's there, and there's a note on the arrow informing, Manute and the others that, in exchange for Gale, he will give them the head of Jackie Boy. And yeah, and that arrow going straight through that guy, with the shades, Stuka, and the fact that he has a swastika on his forehead, that didn't finish him off, but then he does get finished off being shot in the head and such. Jeez Louise. So, yeah, this would lead to the mob, with Gale in their hands, to meet with, Dwight, who has the head of Jackie Boy. And it does go pretty well, the exchange, but, at the same time, they're still going to plan on executing them, and after some dialogue that each of them share and such, and, the fact that, the mob gets screwed this time because all of the prostitutes are on top of these buildings, they are loaded and ready, and, yep, pretty much the mob are no match by this point against the prostitutes. So thus, all of them unleashing their guns, and one by one, the mobs and members of the mob, including Manute, being taken down. There's an explosion and such. Becky got a bit wounded, and she's hiding and, duck and cover from all this chaos that's happening. And it seems though that, Dwight and, Gale, they did get back together. Also, another mentioning of Shelley, because she did try stopping Jackie Boy from doing what he was going to do. And that was one of those things where it occurred to them about when discovering Jackie Boy being a hero cop. So, man, just, that was easy for them to take down those bad guys, and, because in Old Town, you don't mess with those prostitutes. And actually, because, it started with the explosion first, and they didn't get that wounded from it, but they were dazed, and that's when they see all the prostitutes loaded and such, and man, just what a way for that story/segment to go out. Just, but quite a happy ending, I guess, for those characters, but the big fat kill, the fourth segment/story for Sin City, it was another pretty good one, but the movie's not finished, because we now come back to part 2 of the second story/segment, That Yellow Bastard. By this point, Hartigan finds himself in the hospital. And another mentioning of the director's cut, because we see some of the characters like, say, Lucille and a few others, confronting Hartigan because, they believe that he's the bad guy, and it's thanks to Senator Rourke, because Senator Rourke framing Hartigan because of, the fact that he killed his boy, Rourke Jr., and Rourke warning, Hartigan, if he is to reveal the truth, John Harrigan, that's his first name, John, if he is to reveal the truth with all this, and that Rourke is the actual villain, then Rourke is going to clap/kill everyone he loves. And there's one moment where young Nancy pays a visit to John in his hospital bed, thanking him for what he's done and is worried about him and so on. But, at the same time, she's told by John that she needs to stay away from him or else they'll come after her. But that's not to say she's not gonna, no longer be in touch with John, because she will from time to time be sending him letters, not going by her name Nancy, but instead going by a private name by Cordelia, you know what I'm trying to say, just, you know me sometimes, but so that's the name she'll go by, and, hopefully this will succeed, and it actually does. It does. Nobody suspects that and realizes that Nancy, going by a different name, is sending letters to poor John, So John, unfortunately, having been thrown in prison and living the rest of his years, not for the rest of his life, but just for a handful of years in a jail cell, and again, from time to time, him being, receiving letters from Nancy going by a different name, and, the only person that ever stayed close with John and that cared for him was Nancy, and it's really a shame for all the others that liked him, but to be turned against. Little do they know that, John wasn't the bad guy, and they were manipulated by Senator Rourke. Just, that's hard and devastating at the same time. So for 8 years, literally, poor John spending, 8 years in prison, still receiving letters from Nancy, until at one point, 8 years later, he stopped receiving letters from Nancy. And this went on for 2 months, and, at one point, out of nowhere, John gets an unexpected visit by this creepy yellow guy. And because literally seeing him in yellow. We have no idea whom this creepy guy is at first. Neither does John, but he's intimidating looking, for that's for sure. The creepy look and design. And by the way, because some of the makeup for this movie, and that especially goes for this yellow guy. Yeah, really well done. And, well, that's another thing because, well, we get the idea, and hence the title of this story/segment, that yellow bastard. Yeah, because that's who it is, the yellow bastard, as he's referred to. And also, another thing, the visual effects, and with this being shot in black and white/noir, fantastic, of course. And the music and score, excellent, too. Yeah. With it having its charm, the CG and visuals, and, I don't know. Maybe as of now, I think it still looks pretty good. And again, it has its charm to it. So, yeah. But anyway, so as I was saying, John getting an unexpected visit by this creepy yellow guy in his jail cell, and at one point knocking out John, and then seeing this letter that is the exact same kind of letter that he had received from Nancy, and seeing this this cut finger, the severed finger in the envelope, and he thinks that maybe it's Nancy's finger, and that maybe they got to Nancy. They eventually found out that Nancy's secretly sending letters, that, they found out, what she was doing, and John being devastated by this, and if anything had happened by now to Nancy. And this is where he finally confesses, managing to be released from prison. And when he shared this at one point to Lucille, that he wanted to confess, and which, she didn't like it at first, even punching him in the face. But, going along with it, makes his confession, and, well, not long after that, he's finally free from prison. And whom is right outside to visit him and give him a ride, I should say, is his partner Bob. Oh God, just out of anybody, it had to be Bob. And little does, both of them know that they're being followed by the creepy yellow guy, referred to as the yellow bastard. So, some of the dialogue that John and Bob have, and when it would lead to John finding his way to Nancy's house, but Nancy is nowhere in sight, and her house/apartment, it had been broken in. The door had been broken, and a lot of stuff scattered on the floor. So because something must have happened to Nancy. But with what John does next to further investigate, the whereabouts, if Nancy is still alive and well. And there were a few things that Hartigan noticed on the floor where, he thought at first that maybe Nancy became a book nerd because with these books and such, but then noticing a cigarette pack that came straight from the saloon, and that's when it occurs to Hartigan, and us, the audience, that Nancy became a prostitute. And he makes his way to the saloon, and he did find out that that severed finger in that envelope was not actually Nancy's. And the further he finds out about this, and even, we see a few familiar characters at the saloon, like most notably Marv. Marv is there very quickly. And seeing Nancy perform on stage, and, Nancy, older Nancy, being played by Jessica Alba, and we did see Nancy. Little did we know that was an older Nancy we were seeing in the last story/segments. It's Nancy. It doesn't take too long for Nancy, while performing on stage, to identify that it's Hartigan. And, Hartigan, when realizing that it is Nancy, he doesn't want her to know that it's him, and the fact that the yellow bastard is in the saloon. But Nancy, jumping off the stage and lunging after Hartigan, kissing him, and, it doesn't take them too long to make a run for it. She drives, and they are reunited after 8 years. And, because Hartigan felt at one point, and the fact that he stopped getting letters from Nancy, because he felt that Nancy completely forgot about him, but she never did. And some of the dialogue that they have, until when we see the yellow bastard is on their tail, and a gunfight in pursuit. Gunfire in pursuit, and, Hartigan telling Nancy to keep on driving while he takes care of the yellow bastard. And eventually, he manages to take down the yellow bastard, having the yellow bastard wreck his car. And when they go to investigate, Hartigan wanted Nancy to stay in the car, but she wanted to stay close with him because who knows what would happen if he were to leave her alone, just, yeah, with how she puts it. So, yeah. So when investigating the aftermath of the wrecked car, well, they see the yellow bloodstains of the yellow creep, but there's no body. And they escape, they flee when they hear police sirens making their way, and they stay at a motel. But little do they realize that the yellow creep, the yellow bastard, managed to get in the back of their car, and yeah. Then there's a moment between Nancy and Hartigan where Nancy confesses her love to Hartigan, but Hartigan doesn't want this because by this point, he'd be old enough to be, like, say, her grandpa. But Nancy doesn't care, because by this point, and when she got older, she really fell in love with him. And, you know, she did kiss him at one point, but then it takes, like, a minute, and then he embraces. And they were almost about to hook up, but then that was interrupted when they heard a noise. And little do they know right now that, yeah, because the yellow bastard is nearby. Then at one point, Hartigan took a shower, a cold shower, to, you know, clear off the booze and with what was the stress that was going through him. But his cold shower being interrupted when the yellow guy steps in, knocks him out, and has both of them held hostage. And even when, like, yeah, he has Nancy in his lap and injects something in her. And also, the mentioning that Hartigan gives to Nancy, not to scream. Yeah, that being a big important part. And, you know, a good majority of this movie. Yeah. And it's revealed that the yellow bastard happens to be Rourke Jr. Yeah. Now he takes on the look and appearance of the yellow bastard, and he's now seeking revenge. And I wonder if, yeah, probably so. Probably, you know, Rourke Jr.'s father, Senator Rourke, would know, of course, that his son is alive. Just, yeah, I presume, yeah. And I think maybe, I seem to recall the movie kind of establishing that, but yeah, so anyways. So, yeah, and Rourke Jr. going on about what he's going to do to Nancy. And even at one point, he has Hartigan hung from the neck, and, you know, there's like a table right there, so, you know, his feet are right there, so, you know, at any point the table is knocked over, then, yeah, and, well, Rourke Jr. disembarking with poor Nancy, and yeah, still, again, Hartigan telling Nancy not to scream at all. And after they disembark, well, Hartigan is really struggling, you know, trying to, you know, get out of his situation. And even when, like, say, two goons of Rourke Jr. are on their way to check on, you know, the aftermath of Hartigan if he's dead by now. And Hartigan taking it upon himself, and with, you know, still, narration from Hartigan and encouraging himself to not give up, you know, not to, you know, for the old man not to give up, referring to himself, and yeah. And he manages, with his bare feet, to break a glass window. Hey, that's kind of very similar to how Bruce Willis would do that kind of thing in Die Hard, yeah. Coincidence? Maybe, but, you know, coincidence? I think not. But probably just, you know, you knew what I was referring to, but probably, yeah, like, maybe it was a coincidence, but I don't know. Maybe it was a reference, because, you know, Bruce Willis breaking glass with his bare feet? Eh, anyways, so, by doing so, and with his own bare feet, holding a sharp, you know, stick of glass, and managing, well, obviously, gonna manage to, you know, tear off the rope, which he does so. And by that point, the table was knocked off, and yeah, because struggling to, you know, balance himself, but yeah, he managed to succeed, and yeah, and when the two goons of Junior step in, yeah, Hartigan taking them down, and thus Hartigan proceeding to Rourke's farm to come face to face and to take down Rourke Jr. / the Yellow Bastard once and for all. And yeah, because, you know, seeing Rourke's farm once again, and with what goes on this time, and in the in part 2 of That Yellow Bastard. And also, he got some information from Junior's goons on where he will find Junior and Rourke Jr., that is, and Nancy, and that being at the Rourke farm. So yeah, he proceeds his way, and at one point, the heart condition gets to him again. And apparently, because, yeah, he was promised by Senator Rourke, well, yeah, Senator Rourke had promised Hartigan that he would fix him up with his heart condition. But that didn't really come to be, because he did, but only for Hartigan to suffer those 8 years in prison. So, yeah. And by this point, yeah, because he's not fully cured from that heart condition, so yeah. But he still manages to make his way to the farm and, well, seeing Rourke Jr., aka the Yellow Bastard, interrogating Nancy, and like I said earlier, Hartigan telling Nancy not to scream, because if she were to do so, then that's when, yeah, that gave the perfect opportunity for Rourke Jr. to clap her. So, yeah. With Hartigan making his way to the farm, well, at one point, he gets shot down by 2 of Rourke's bodyguards, but yeah, it doesn't take too long for Hartigan to take them down, yeah. And then, yeah, when Rourke Jr. sees that Hartigan is alive, then he starts to go downstairs with Nancy, and Hartigan's right there, and Hartigan plays a trick on Rourke Jr. that he's too weak to shoot him, and by collapsing on the snowy ground, and, well, Rourke Jr. falls for this, up to when, yeah, Hartigan then attacks Rourke Jr. and, yeah, taking him down, like, and tearing off his crotch, his yellow crotch, basically, and literally punching his head entirely, squashing it, just, and that's the final demise and defeat for Rourke Jr. Yeah, Rourke Jr. / the Yellow Bastard is done for, once and for all. And after that, well, Hartigan and Nancy getting out of there, and Hartigan has Nancy, disembark, leaving him behind, because he tells Nancy that he will, pick up the evidence and by putting Senator Rourke behind bars. But he basically lied to Nancy as a way for her to go back home safe and sound, because, yeah, there's no way that Hartigan is going to be able to, put a senator behind bars, because, yeah, how powerful Senator Rourke is. So what he does instead, and to keep Nancy alive, is by shooting himself. And that's what he literally does. And did I forget to mention that a good chunk of times, certain scenes that would have, like, animation to this. So, yeah. So when it comes to Hartigan putting himself out, yeah, that was a bit of animation right there. And, yeah, that's it for John Hartigan. Man, just, when he was close to retirement, but for all of that to happen to him. But, what mattered to him most was Nancy, and from the end, just, yeah, knowing that Nancy was going to be safe and sound, for the rest of her life, well, he had to sacrifice himself. Just, yeah. That was, it's a bit sad, but, he did a heroic thing, that's for sure. But the movie's not done just yet, because with how the movie started off, well, we now come to part 2 of The Customer is Always Right. And again, The Customer is Always Right being very short, because, yeah, part 2 being the very last thing that ends off this movie, because, like I said, part 1 starting off the movie, and with part 2, yeah, ending off the movie, because, yeah, the last characters we see is, most notably Becky, because we see her at a hospital. She's all right, and yeah, she's got a sling, because yeah, her arm was very wounded, and she's on the phone with her mom. Her mom is all right. And at one point, she gets in the elevator, and, she comes face to face with the man. Yeah, Josh Hartnett. Yeah. Where he's disguised as a doctor and such, and offering her to smoke. And yeah, I think, yeah, judging by Becky and how she reacts to this, she knows that she's in trouble. And she gets the last line of the movie where, yeah, she says, "I love you, Mom," and she hangs up the phone, and that's it. That's how the movie ends. Golly, just, yeah. Man, what a heck of a way to end off this movie. And with that, with how this movie started, with the first story/segment, very quick, and with part 2, just, golly, just, man. Very interesting, but hey, at the same time, really good. Just, yeah. Sin City. It's a very interesting masterpiece of a film from Rodriguez, Miller, and Tarantino being a guest director. Yeah. All 4 stories/segments were really good. Yeah. And yeah, from, say, The Customer Is Always Right, That Yellow Bastard, The Hard Goodbye, and The Big Fat Kill, with what these 4 story/segments had to offer, being adapted from the comic books, of course. Knowing these characters and what's going on with these characters, some of them have some connections with each other, and the craziness that goes on in these stories, the action, the suspense, the villains, and the gruesome moments, and just, yeah. What more do I really have to say? Just, yeah. Overall, Sin City itself, it's a really good film, and definitely one of Rodriguez's top masterpieces, and alongside with Frank Miller, because, you know, without Frank Miller, we wouldn't have this, because Frank Miller really being the father of Sin City, being responsible for those comics from Dark Horse and such, just, yeah. And I'm giving the film Sin City, 8 out of 10 stars. Yes, 8 out of 10 stars for Sin City. And what about you guys? What did you think of Sin City itself? Is it one of your top favorite movies from Rodriguez? And with Frank Miller, Tarantino being a guest director, which of the 4 story/segments are your favorite? Your favorite characters, and what goes on in these stories, moments you did not expect, and where you were on the edge of your seat. And if any of you had read the Sin City comics, you are fans of Frank Miller's work, and Rodriguez, of course, Tarantino, can't forget to leave him out. Don't want to leave him out, of course. What do you think was which of the 4 story/segments do you think was the strongest? You know, any of you, by any chance, got to see this in theaters, or, you know, when it came out, like, say, on DVD, digital, Blu-ray, etc.? Yeah, just being mind blown by this movie and with what it's like. Just overall, what do you think of Sin City itself, the movie, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Sin City from 2005. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video /review. And, well, stay tuned, because what I will be reviewing next is something else that was directed by Robert Rodriguez. And yeah, because 2005 was a big year for him, because we had Sin City and another one where basically, and I'm pretty sure you already know where, because yeah, it has to do with this girl who has the powers of, you know, producing lava, and a boy who is also a shark. Yeah, you know what it is, clearly. So yeah, because you know what movies came out that year for Rodriguez in 2005. So yeah, yeah. Again, stay tuned for that. Take care. Happy anniversary to Sin City, and until Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, peace out.